All right, good evening, everyone. Sunday night, 7 p.m. We are starting it right on time. Uh, my name is Spencer Geezy. I'm our AAU director at Ohio Sports Plus. Great to see a number of familiar faces on the call and so many new names and new faces, which I love. So glad that however you've heard about Ohio Sports Plus, that you have, and that you've taken some time out of your weekend to connect and learn more about our program here in 2025. Yes, so I will continue to let folks in to the meeting as they arrive. You should all be seeing a presentation I've put together for you all, and there is a chat function as well. So if there are questions that come up over the course of our meeting, you can feel free to put items in the chat for the whole group. You can send me a message directly in the chat if you've got a question you want me to address directly. Uh, Whatever works for you. My goal tonight is that I'm able to connect, give you some information about Ohio Sports Plus's AAU program for the spring, and answer any questions you might have. So again, thanks for your time and energy. We'll make quick work of this. So first thing I can let you know is that we've got tryouts starting next Saturday already, which I cannot believe. We've got our seventh and eighth grade tryouts occurring next weekend. In 2 weekends, we'll be having uh, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, and then we'll have our high school tryouts later on in the month of February. So hopefully you've seen our website. Hopefully you've seen our tryout times. I've got them on the screen once again for you to just kind of zero in on when when your player's grade level is having their tryouts. Tryouts are based on the grade your player is in right now. So we don't do any type of age like 14U, 15U. Everything's based on current grade level. So take a look at that. We'll revisit this slide later on, but I just wanted to put that out there for y'all as you're kind of gauging where you're at. And let me give you a little bit of background on Ohio Sports Plus. I'll leave that up. We'll be just kind of talk about where we're at. So, uh, Ohio Sports Plus is a basketball development program based in Dublin. The easiest way I can tell you, it's where Sawmill and 270 meets. Right there is where Ohio Sports Plus has a complex. Uh, Ohio Sports Plus has been around for, gosh, I would say over 30 years. I have been the AU director at Ohio Sports Plus. This will be year 10. I started out as a coach, and then thankfully I've got this thing called the Master's in Sports Management, and I put it to good use in running this program and trying to create a seamless experience for players, parents, teams, coaches, etc. Um, and we are typically we have about 20 teams each spring. That's what our players are trying out for. We have one for at least every grade level, and for many grade levels, we'll have two or three at that grade level. So, really, a lot of our numbers come from our tryouts and how those go. I'm a big believer in we are not a program that creates teams for the sake of having a team. This is not a cash grab. We put together teams that can be competitive, grow together, have some success. We're not looking to put together teams that go 25 and 0. We don't want any teams that go 0 and 25. We are really looking for that sweet developmental spot where maybe your team does go a little bit over 500. Maybe you end up going 13 and 10. Maybe you go 12 and 12 because we know that our players can gain just as much from a non-win, a loss, as they can do from that really fun win. So always trying to find the balance in competition where they can go be challenged uh, and grow through that. So let's go back to trout information. Tryouts will be taking place on the weekends for the next couple weekends. Um, each of those time slots is a 90-minute, an hour and a half time slot. The tryout itself will go about 75 minutes. I would tell you to make sure that your player arrives early for their tryouts so that they can get warmed up, get their shoes off, get their outdoor shoes off, get their court shoes on. Please don't wear your basketball shoes outside. I always beg players not to do that. Uh, and you need to be loose and ready to go because when that tryout time starts, we are ready to go. So if a tryout is starting at 4 p.m., that doesn't mean roll into the gym at 4 p.m. That means your players on the court ready to go for that 4 p.m. tryouts. We'll have a registration desk when you come in. We'll check you in whether you've done your online registration already or you do it the day of. We will check you in. Each player will get a bib number, and that is basically how we are able to identify who the player is through the whole tryout. They'll have a number assigned to them. We put that in with our registration system so that when we're all done with tryouts, we can be like, okay, player 78, player 83, these are players that we're pursuing to put on a team, etc. So it's really important that your player gets that bib, they put it on the front of their shirts, and they keep it on throughout the tryout. Um, Players are welcome to bring their own basketballs to tryouts. Uh, just know there's a lot of basketballs in the gym. We will provide basketballs as well. If you bring a ball, please take it home. Uh, please don't. We hate if you leave that behind because then it gets in the pile of basketballs and it's more challenging than I I'm happy to realize. So yeah, bring water, bring a positive attitude, be ready to do a drill, do many drills. We will start out with warm-ups. We will then do a number of drills to just see where our skill levels are, and then we're going to jump into competition. We're going to do some one-on-ones, two-on-twos, three-on-threes, four-on-fours. So really, every player has multiple chances to shine. Like I said, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've got the tryout process to the point where everyone can feel comfortable, warmed up by the time we get in the game situations, but at the same time, everyone has the ability to shine. We don't typically miss players that, oh, they just had a bad tryout. They've got so many opportunities to do well for us. I promise that we'll be able to see where they're at. We know players are developing. We know they might be having a bad day, but we can see if there's that heart and that skill behind them. Um, for parents, guardians, we ask that you come check in your player, make sure they're settled, and then scoot out of the gym. This is not a spectator time. I know that that can actually be a relief for some players. I know that can be stressful for parents. I understand. I'm always happy to connect with parents afterwards if you need to know immediately how it went. But typically, we're going to all to get together with all our evaluators in the gym, kind of grade out players and how it goes, and then try to come to a consensus on how each player did during the tryout. Um, Leave, drop them off, leave, and then, if you want to come back 10, 15 minutes before the end of your tryout time, that's great. We don't want a whole sideline of parents there the whole time. Trust there's many adults in the gym. Trust that your kids are in a good spot. But there's a lot to do in Sawmill, and then come on back and pick them up. So again, hopefully you've seen this tryout graphic a number of times. If you've not signed up your player uh, for the tryout registration yet, you can scan that QR code at any time on this presentation, or you can do that when we're all done. Um, if your player can't make your age group's tryout time, send me an email. If you email basketball@ohiosportsplus.com, that's me. I'm going to answer that email for you. Um, know that yes, it's the time of year where I get inundated with emails, so I will do my best to get that answer to you in a timely fashion. But just know that that can be it's a busy time. Thanks for understanding. As we're putting together 20 teams, I'm working with every one of the grade levels and our coaches at those levels to create teams. Um, so you go through the tryout process, um, and it goes well. You're going to get it reached out to by the coach. You might be asking, well, who's the coach? Well, every grade level's got different coaches. Like it's impossible for me to get every coach information on this call. But just know that you're going to get to talk to the coach before you say yes. We don't want anyone to be surprised. Oh, they're my coach. Like you get to have that conversation. And if you've got questions about the offer or questions about the experience, certainly that's a great opportunity while you're getting that off from the coach to ask that. Um, so as we look at that, as you're offered a spot on the team, if you're able to accept that spot on the team, our team fee is again $600. That has not changed. Even though everything else in life has got more expensive, we're at the same rate we've been. That rate includes your full uniform. So you'll have two different uniform tops. You'll have your shorts. You'll have shooting shirts. You'll be in 5 weekend tournaments in the Columbus area, and then you'll be practicing twice a week. Um, I get this question all the time. I'm going to try to answer as best I can. Practices for the teams are not set yet. That's by design, because what I give to all of our coaches is basically a grid that they have all the team parents fill in, like, oh, we've got this thing on Tuesdays. We're always going to miss on Tuesdays. Each coach can kind of compile their preferences for like, hey, let's go Monday, Thursday. Let's go Tuesday, Thursday. Let's go Monday, Wednesday. I take all those preferences and I grid teams into practice spots. So just know, yes, they're not, no practice time is set in stone. We do our very best to support multi-sport athletes. We are here. Here's our Ohio Sports Plus niche. This is where we are in the AAU program landscape. We want to support multi-sport athletes. We want, we oftentimes are supporting multi-athlete families that you've got a lot going on during the week. We're playing in Columbus. If you are wanting your player to travel to Atlanta, to DC, to Philadelphia, to Louisville, to tournaments, unfortunately, we're not the best program for you. I'll just own that. We are playing local tournaments in Columbus because, frankly, if we can't beat all the teams in Columbus, why are we spending so much time, energy, and money to go play in other cities far, far away? So everything's here. So you know, you you might have 2 games on a Saturday at Thomas Worthington High School. Go home, enjoy family time, and then Sunday morning you've got another game. The way that the tournaments work, you'll always play 2 games on Saturday, whether it's a boys team, a girls team, whatever the matter. You're going to play 2 games on Saturday. How you do in those 2 games will seed you on Sunday. So your Sunday schedule won't be known until you play those 2 games on Saturday. You'll look at the bracket where you fall, and that's the game you play on Sunday. Almost every tournament, you play that first game on Sunday. If you win, you play again. If you win, you play again. If you lose, you're done. So it might be early morning game on Sunday. You don't win, go to brunch as a team, or go home, whatever that looks like for you. But just know what kind of our tournament setup looks like. We're going to have 2 games on Saturdays, at least a game on Sunday, and then how you do on that game on Sunday dictates when you play again, if you play again. Um, Weekend tournaments. There are so many tournaments each weekend in Columbus that are available to our teams. Once we form our teams, have our coaches connect with their team parents, and try to identify what are the best weekends for the team to play. We're not going to play every weekend. Most teams will play one weekend in March, 2 weekends in April, 2 weekends in May. That schedule will be created by the team, by the coaches for the team to identify the best weekends for the team in that kind of player availability piece. Once I get those preferences, I register all the teams for all the tournaments. Your coaches don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. That's me as the AAU director. Uh, and really, then you just practice, get ready for those tournaments, go play in the tournaments, see how you do, continue. I work with all of our coaches to help them set up their tournament schedules. I try to make sure from experience that we pace ourselves. We don't play 5 weekends in a row. That's not too healthy. We need a break, and you all want a weekend to yourselves, I'm sure. So just know that, yes, that can sound murky, but we've been doing this for years. We really wanted to tailor to the availability of our players and our player families. So locking in a tournament right now for the first weekend in April and then finding out that 7 players in the team are out of town that weekend, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's why we don't have that scheduled yet. There's so many options in Columbus. It'll be no problem to get those tournaments in. Yeah. So, um, I'm doing great on we got so many people want to coach us here, which is outstanding. I love that. But I will just put up this slide that if you are really interested in coaching or you've got a passion for it, even if it's as an assistant coach, you want to be part of the team, you want to help out organizationally, certainly feel free to reach out to me at basketball at ohiosportsplus.com. Happy to happy to hear from you. See if I can find you a fit somewhere. Um, And for me as the AAU director, again, I'm going to order all the uniforms program wide. I'm going to schedule all the practices program wide. I'll schedule all the games program wide. Um, so really it's as coaches, the coach that you'll have, it's an opportunity for them to help develop those players and not worry so much about all the administrative pieces. A question I often get asked where practices typically, I know we'll be using the Ohio Sports Plus complex to have practices there. We often also get into the Olentangy school system and use some gym space there, and then other gyms that come up. I mean, every team, it's wild how often we find like someone's got a connection. Oh, I've got a gym that we can use. Okay, great. Thank you for having access to that. That's a happy accident that happens with many of our teams, but we'll always provide gym space to the teams all spring long. Other things that I would just note, we let everyone know after tryouts where they stand with us. If you've not heard yet, that just means we are still working on creating the team or teams for that grade level. So no news is just no news. Um, and February is going to be one of those months for many of you that if you get that phone call from a number you're not familiar with, maybe you spike it to voicemail, but you look and see if they leave you voicemail or you text them. Hopefully you'll be hearing from some new phone numbers with an offer to be on a team. That's a great opportunity for you and your player. Um, yeah, so I'm happy to open it up for questions that you might have. You can put that in the chat. You can come off mute and ask whatever works best for y'all. Y'all are interested. I appreciate that. I want to make sure your questions are answered. So what have I not covered?
One quick question. My name is
Sure.
Sean.
Hey, Sean.
Um, how many players do you usually
It's a
hold
great.
on each team?
That's a great question. Our most typical number of players on a team is 10. I know I oftentimes take 12, but I also typically try to support a number of multi-sport athletes. And if I take 12, that means I've always got good numbers at practice and at games. But we're going to take 10. There won't be teams with 6, 7, or 8. That just doesn't work in terms of availability and the ability to have practices that are competitive and help you get ready for game situations. So most likely 10. Great question. Um, I am recording our session tonight. So what I'm going to do is after we're done, I will process the recording. I'll make sure I send that out to everyone who is in attendance. And certainly if you've got a partner that couldn't make it, or you want to pass it on to a colleague or someone else that might be considering Ohio Sports Plus, that's great. Love that. So just know that that's coming. Or if you missed something here, you want to revisit something we talked about, certainly that recording will exist. Question I had come in about tryouts. Your player only needs to come to one tryout. So as you see these dates, you just need to come to one. You don't need to come to both tryouts. If you can't make the first one, but you can make the second one, great. Come to the second one. If you can only make the first one, that's great too. Um, but players should not, players and parents, none of you should feel pressure that you need to attend both of these sessions. You just need to attend one. Uh, and then I would also say, we do have that makeup date on the 18th of February at 7 p.m. Oftentimes we have people who are sick, we're out of town, there's some conflict, and that's an opportunity to get them in. The other thing I want to point out, and this is for middle school teams that are public school, so hear me really clearly. I'm speaking about public school, middle school teams, not diocese. The diocese is not regulated by the Ohio High School Athletic Association. If you're playing for a public school and you are still in season, like you are still playing in a tournament game or you have a game upcoming this weekend, you're not to try out with us. We don't want you to try out until your school season is fully over. If you're in the diocese, you could still be in tournament play. You can still come to tryouts. It's a different set of rules. So, um, starting in seventh grade, there's a max of 3 players from a middle school or a high school team that can be on a team together. So oftentimes we'll see in the fourth, fifth, sixth grade levels, you might go to a tournament. It's the whole New Albany Coba team is playing together still at tournaments in the spring. That can happen fourth, fifth, sixth grade potentially. But starting in seventh grade, you've got a max of 3 from a school. So oftentimes those players start to get broken up and have to go split off into different programs if they want to keep playing in the spring. I had a great question come in the chat about playing time. Um, thank you for that. That's something that I should definitely touch on. Um, what I hmm, what I tell our coaches, and we really try to hold true to this, is that if a player's on your roster, they need to get in the game now, and they need to get in all the games. So if they're there, they've been attending practice, they're not sick, they're not hurt, they should be in the game. Now, that's where it ends in terms of what must happen. At that point, it's about what you've earned for your playing time. So have you been working hard in practice? Are you performing well in the courts? Um, Now, I'm not looking for someone to get inserted in the game for 20 seconds to get yanked out, but we're also not tracking to have playing time be even across the board. It is competitive basketball. Also, there's matchups. There's how a team's performing, what a team is facing, both on offense and defense, and how that impacts the roster that's being played or the personnel that's being played in the game. So all players should be playing in all games as long as there's not some extenuating circumstance, but that playing time is not equal. You've got to earn that. I have a really direct policy that I would tell all of you listening, whether that's now or on a recording. If your player wants more playing time, it is not you, the parents, talking to our AAU coach ever about that. That is not a conversation that should be had by a parent. That should be the player going to the coach saying this magic phrase: Coach, what do I need to work on to earn more playing time? That is how we address playing time in our organization. It should never be you as the parent that's making that communication on their behalf. It needs to be the player going to the coach. We're teaching them life skills that they can take with them. So someday when they're in a job and they want perhaps more salary, or they want a change in work stuff, something where they can have that adult conversation that they've built up through this potential experience, asking for feedback on what they can do better to improve. Because I promise, if we've got players on teams, we want them in the game. We picked them for a reason. We saw their potential. Um, we're not picking kids on teams. We're not adding kids to teams just to add them. We're adding them for their development and growth, and also for the success of the team to have them on the team. So, great question. I hope that is a helpful answer for y'all. Let's see. Is there typically more than one team per grade level? Oftentimes, it absolutely depends on tryout numbers. Um, like I said, we're never going to create a team just because there's numbers. Like, oh, 25 people came out to tryouts. We should make two teams. We need to make sure that those teams can both be viable and successful, because I don't want to send any team to tournaments that's going to get crushed because we didn't give them great personnel. So just know we don't accept everyone onto a team. Some programs do. They shall remain nameless on this call, but that's not us. We make as many teams as we can viably make. So there'll be multiple high school teams. There'll be usually multiple at the middle school level, and then fourth, fifth, sixth. It just depends. Do we have enough talent that's there to make two successful teams? Outstanding. Um, Question of the chat: Are players allowed to attend both tryouts? They can. They're welcome to. Once you pay that tryout fee of $10 the first day, you don't get charged that on day two. That's just your tryout fee. That covers our administrative pieces of it. So if they really want to come back for day two, they're welcome to. Certainly, if you've got a player that gets home and they're like, I did so bad, it was not a great tryout. If they really want to come to the second one, they sure can. If they feel like they can show us something they didn't show us. But I would not also stress that is not a stressful point to make sure they come to both. One is fine. How many players per team do we usually have try out? That's a really great question. Um, I would say we range from probably oftentimes 20 to 30 per grade level. That's a pretty stable number across the board, especially as we split it off into 2 days. Um, oftentimes we've got a great amount of kids to kind of pick from to assemble teams. Um, and then Ohio Sports Plus, yes, thanks, Michael, for putting that in the chat. We are at 4140 Tuller Road. We're Suite 118. It's kind of an industrial complex. There's a bunch of small businesses in there. We face a bunch of like townhouses across the streets, but we're in Suite 118, kind of smack dab in the middle. You should see it say Ohio Sports Plus on the glass. You should see a Suite 118 on the glass. That should help guide you in. And probably a bunch of cars that are parked near there. Um, could a good athlete play up? For example, a ninth grader playing on a 10th grade team? Absolutely. And especially for like high school tryouts, all the high school players try out together. So, and we'll have multiple levels of high school coaches in the gym for tryouts. So certainly there's an ability to potentially spark the curiosity of an older grade coach, and it can happen. At our younger levels, I know I've had a number of questions coming about third grade players. If you're in third grade, you're trying out for the fourth grade team. At all tournaments, boys and girls, there is no third grade division. The lowest tournament division is fourth grade. So if you've got a player that starts early and is a third grader, makes the fourth grade team, that's awesome. Um, there's no third grade team to make because there's no place for third grade teams to play. That's why we combine those, or that's why we invite third graders to try out on the fourth grade team. Mm. Great. Well, I believe I tackled our questions over the chat. A couple additional benefits that come with Ohio Sports Plus AAU basketball. We are in the same complex in our space is also fitness planning consultants. That'll be court three in our space if you see in there. That is speed and strength training, injury prevention training. So our players are all players that make teams are offered a few Sunday workouts with their group at no additional charge, just to come in and kind of get an experience of what some speed and strength training can feel like. Uh, yeah, and we will also have a sports medicine um, kind of consultant on call that if you've ever got a player with an ache and pain, that we can connect to you and they can do a quick check-in and see if it's something that needs further treatment. Um, to Katie's question, please clarify the not trying out while still playing in tournaments. Depends on your grade level. If I so fourth, fifth, and sixth, that they can try out even if they're still playing on a COBA team. They can still try out. Starting in seventh grade, if you're at a public school in seventh and eighth grade, you must be done with your season. And then same thing for all high school teams. You must have completed your final game to be able to come to tryouts. Let's say you're a freshman on a boys team and your boys team is going to state, but you are not practicing the varsity at all. You could come to tryouts if your freshman season was over. You don't need to necessarily wait until the varsity and finishes, as long as you are not participating with the varsity as they're still practicing. If that makes sense. So if you're done, you can try out. Players that were on a team the previous year, are they given an offer before tryouts? No, they are not. Players from previous years still need to come try out, still need to go through the drills, go through the skills, show that they've continued to improve, show that they can be a good fit on a team. Certainly, I'm sure if you've got a returning coach to that grade, there might be some coach rapport. But we have no spots that are guaranteed to anyone at this point. Players have got to come try out just like everybody else. Great question. Standing. So what I'm going to do, I am going to stop our recording and thank you so much for taking time to connect on this call tonight.